Groove Builders, welcome to the workbench. We have our Metal Alert D-0 droid here in some pretty awesome Star Wars packaging. And I have to admit that this droid looks very unique with its cone-shaped head here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the back. On the back, we get a brief look at our metal and also a look at our finished model. On the left here, we have a QR code which we can scan to get a 360 view of our build as we're building. Very useful for adding little bits of detail onto our build. And then on the right here, we have some instructions on how to build our model. Finally, on the very bottom, we get a look at some other models in this series, and you better believe we're going to be building every single one of those. Groovers, let's go ahead and open up our package. We have our instructions. And we have our metal. And take a look at all of that color. That looks really awesome. Metal Alert team did a great job with this. Alright Groovers, let's get out our first couple of pieces. And there we go. We have all of our parts needed for that first page. Now the first thing we're going to be doing is grabbing part number 1 right here and folding this over into a square. Now this can be a little bit tricky with how thin this metal is, so what we're going to do is we're going to start by bending the innermost part first and then working our way to the outside. Let me show you what I mean by that. So again, we're going to grab the innermost part here using as much of our tweezers as possible without accidentally bending any of the other detail. You know what? I'm actually going to use 2 sets of tweezers for this because that might actually be a lot easier than just the one. So again, bend that like that. Cool. And this is a square, so we're going to bend these panels individually, and we're going to try to get a really nice 90-degree sharp bend there. And there we go. That's our first piece all formed and looking really nice. Now we wait actually until the next step to actually form all the rest of that detail. So what we're going to do now is move on to forming piece number 2 here. Okay, and we're going to fold this over my mandrel here and get a really nice cylinder. There we go. There's our nice cylinder here. That's part number 2. Now same thing with part number 3. I always start big and then work my way down to the smaller sides. Just makes things a little bit easier. I'm also pushing all of my sides here. If you want a really nice cylinder, it's very important that you push evenly on all of your sides and that every piece of this metal gets bent. Otherwise, you end up with a teardrop kind of shape. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to attach parts 2 and 3. The part number 3 here goes at the top. I'm going to make sure that the that little lip, the place where the part number 3 actually connects, is out of sight. We don't want to see those seams at all. And now that we got those in there, we're going to actually make sure that this is all, first of all, together, and that we can form this little piece here to that cylinder. Like that. And then just bringing that right there. Cool. Okay, now making sure that your piece is properly orientated, we're going to attach the part number 4 here at the top. That's where that smaller cylinder is. And depending on how your cylinder is actually formed, this might be a little tricky for you to get them in there. Regardless of the way you do it, you really do want to make sure that you have a flush connection. And it's also very important to make sure that we bend these over. We want to make sure that they're nice and secure. Don't want anything falling off. Now this little guy here gets put in that little corner right there. Bend that down. Excellent. That looks cool. Now we're going to put that little bit of detail here at the bottom. And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm first going to attach it and then I'm going to shape it. The reason why I'm going to do that is because I want a really nice finished cylinder, and the best way to make sure that these are all the way down as possible is to make sure you attach it first then shape your pieces. You want to meet those edges right here. I'm gonna see if I can get that to zoom in a little bit. You really want those edges to meet. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that shape. And that is our first part. Now we need to move on to part number 6 here, which just involves us pushing all of this detail to the inside. It's very easy to do if you have detailed tweezers. I'm going to grab the thicker ones here to do it though, just to make my life a little easier. There we go. Excellent. Really nice and solid there. Now we're going to grab part number 7 and making sure that this little indent here is at the bottom. We're going to connect all of our pieces. Great success. Now we're going to secure these tabs and I'm going to fold these over. I'm going to try to make sure that I keep them out of the way of the other little insertion holes that are all through here. This one I'm actually going to twist in the attempt to keep it out of the way of that. And I'll do that one here too. Why not? Boom. Alrighty. Now we get to move on to this guy right here. This is part number 8. And part number 8 is very easy to form. We're just going to grab these tabs here on either side and bend them straight down. Keep in mind, it's very important to grab as much of the tab as possible in those tweezers because that's going to make for a really nice finish. If you accidentally leave a little bit there on the edge, your part will be slightly popped up and it will look a little weird. There we go. That looks so cool. Okay, now we get to move on to this piece right here. This is part number 9. And part number 9 has us actually slightly bending this all the way around. Now the way I'm going to do that is just by slightly doing this all the way around. And what I'm doing is I'm actually bending it. It may not look that way, but I really am. And what I'm just doing is just a lot of mini tiny bends. And that will give me the circle shape that I want. I could also run one of my dapping tools there along the back, and that would also give me a similar shape. But I really do prefer to do as much as I can with my tweezers, so that if you're doing this at home, you have an idea about how to do it. Okay. A little bit more. I'm going to bend this guy down, and that's going to create a lock. Boom. And then we're going to bend that over. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. And what I can actually do is use one of my dapping tools to help me kind of round out this shape if I need to a little bit. But let's see how it attaches. Let's grab these little guys here. We're going to grab all of our tabs and bring them in towards the middle, and we're going to face them right back because this is going to attach it onto the wheel that we just made. Now, I'm going to put the seam here on the lower corner like it tells me to. And that is our first tab. Second tab. Boom. Boom. Come on. Oh, I got it. Yes. Awesome. Okay. Push, 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 push. Now, making sure that we're all the way in as we possibly can. I'm actually going to use my tab securing tool here. And I'm going to just secure that like that. And what this does is it allows me to push on the piece and twist at the same time. So I'm actually securing that wheel into place there. There we go. That looks really cool. I really do like that detail. It adds a whole nother layer of these models that just wasn't here before. Okay, now we get to move on to the next stage here, which is putting a little bit of an antenna here on. These little tiny pieces of detail can always be tricky. You want to grab the little tweezers and you want to grab those little tabs and bend them all the way back, just like that. Oops, I kind of warped that tab there by accident. I'm actually going to use my needle nose pliers to help me with that. Help me out a little bit. I'm actually going to bend it back out. Cool. All right. Now with this done, what we're going to do is attach it on to our D-0's little side here. Now this is going to be tricky because these little bits of detail always are. You just got to do your best to line up the points and then just kind of try to marry them the best you can. I recommend starting with the one that's closest to the detail and then getting the other one in on the outside later. Oh, that actually went in a lot easier than I thought it would. I'm going to secure that. That was probably just by chance there, Groovers. That piece can be very tricky. You really just got to pre-bend those tabs, and then, like I said, focus on the tab that's the closest to this part of the detail first, and then get that one. That will help you a lot. Now, let's move on to this next little stage here, which involves us putting that piece that we built on earlier. The antenna is a lot easier for us to move, so I'm going to put on the tab closest to this side first, and then I'm going to work this one here, because that's going to involve me getting around that. Okay, there we go. I got it through. I just had to bend that little antenna out of the way first, and then secure it in there. You definitely need to secure the little piece first and then the bigger piece, but you're gonna have to bend this guy out of the way. But it's okay. It actually worked out pretty well. I don't think you really noticed too much of it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to wire this whole thing up here like it tells us to in the instructions, and we're going to bend that little bit of detail that we have here still from before into its proper place. Okay, there's those little arms. Now what we got to do is we got to kind of put this little black piece here into those little arms, and then we're going to secure the arms. There we go. I'm telling you, detail tweezers make your life a lot easier. Okay, now let's move on to, just like the instructions had us do, now we can move on to the next step, which is part number 11 here. Same thing we did before. We're going to grab the interior pieces here. We're just going to bend them right back as straight as possible. Both sides here. Ooh, being careful not to accidentally bend the piece. That's very easy to do with that center detail like that. Be very, very careful handling this little piece, at least until we get some more detail onto it. Wow, that's really easy to bend. Be very careful with this piece. Okay, now same thing as before. We're going to grab that part number 8. Again, going right to the edge as much as we possibly can. Bending the tab over. And now, just like before, we're going to do the same thing we did before and just bend these pieces like this all the way around. Make sure we're doing this slowly, but that we're making sure to do as many bends as possible as we go around the circle. We want that perfect cone shape, just like we did with the other side. Bending all these tab backs just like before. Okay. Same thing as before, we're going to try to keep all of our seams at the same side. So we're going to make sure it's on the lower right hand side. And there we go. Excellent. There is our second side complete. Now, we're going to need more parts. And there we go. We have all of our parts needed for the second page. Now the first piece we're going to be forming here is part number 13. And because of how part number 13 is formed, it's very important to make sure that we get a very nice circular shape. So what I'm going to do here is use my doming set to try to help me get that shape. Now you'll notice that my tool is actually too small to completely bend this piece. So what I'm doing instead is moving the piece around it to get a really nice forming. There we go. See how circular that is? Very nice. Now with these pieces here, what I'm going to do is the same thing I've done before. I'm going to go right to the edge and bend those tabs down, just like this. There we go. And now the other side. Now when I put them over top of each other, we should see a locking kind of style mechanism take place. Now, the more 90 degrees you have, the easier it will be for them to actually go together. There we go. Okay, there we go. Now, before I go any further, I'm not going to actually bend any of these pieces down. What I'm going to wait and do is actually attach this piece first, and what that's going to do is allow me to make sure that all of these little flaps here are placed in the right place and that there's very little gaps between the two. Actually, what I'm going to do is bend these ones first, like that, and then I'm going to bend the tabs out. So bend down, tab out. Bend down, tab out. Bend down, and then tab, just like that. All right. So make sure I grab these 3 little tabs here. All I'm doing is shoving my little tweezer in there. And you can always actually go on the other side and start it by just pressing down like this on the inside. Boom. And boom. And you can finish up the bend by going right to the far off edge and tilting it up. Just like that. Cool. Okay. Same thing with this side here. We're going to take this one little thing here, and then we're going to bend up the tab. And then we're going to bend this down here, and we're going to do the same thing, lift this tab up. We're going to keep going until we have all 4 of these lifted up. Okay, I think that's pretty good now. We can move on to adding our different parts on. This is going to be the trickier part, if you will. There we go. Our 4 tabs inserted. And now we're just going to bend these tabs. Oh shoot, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to bend them a different way. Because of the paint, I'm going to actually bend them onto the wheel, which is not the way I would actually prefer to secure them, but it's going to look the best. The silver will stand out for sure, especially on the lower edges there. Okay, there we go, our one side, and now we're going to flip it to the other side here. Cool. Fold that in. Give it a nice little press. Same thing on the all the way around again to secure all these tabs down. Just like that. And we're pressing it right against the metal. Very nice. Now, like I said, because we've been able to do this, we're now going to go around and just bend all of this metal down. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I might have to go back and do a little bit more pushing a little later, but for now, we will continue on. Now, the next step we're going to be doing is step 14 here, which is adding a whole bunch of detail to what's going to become the back of D-0's head. Now, we're going to take this part and just put her down here and grab 15 and 16 and attach those 2 parts together first. 16 here is pretty simple to form. Just like that. And doing our best to follow the detail line there. We're going to try to do that. That was a little bit more complicated than it needed to be, but we got her in there, and that's all that really matters. Now with this here, we're going to bend these tabs down because we are going to be, of course, putting this into another part, so we need to make sure this is as flat as possible. There we go. Now we're going to bend these parts down. Now we can take this piece here, which is that little bit of detail we just made up, and we're going to put this right here at the top. Okay, that's our first little bit of detail secured. Now we're going to move on to some cylinders. This is a tiny, tiny cylinder, so we're going to need something small to wrap it around. Let me see what I got here. Whew. Alrighty. Well, that is a small cylinder, if I do say so myself. This little cylinder here gets placed into the back of D-0's head here. I tell you, it's really hard to get them in there, but once they are secured. There we go, nice and round. Now we can move on to the next piece here, part 18, which is a funky shape, that's for sure. This has like a little triangle at the top. So we're going to try to keep that detail. Excellent, there we go. Yep, there we go. We're going to keep adding on this detail, but the next pieces that we're adding on here are 20. Bend these guys down. Okay. Now for us to add these little pieces on here, these might be a little bit more complicated than the last ones. Harder it becomes to get our details secured here. There's that. And now, yeah, we're going to secure one of these little antennas in here before we put that piece on. That's going to be near impossible. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to make sure that the color here is facing up. Bend these parts down here on either side. Again, making sure we go right to that edge. There we go. There we go. What I'm doing here is just kind of trying to marry up the sides, make sure everything kind of aligns. There we go. I'm liking how that's looking. Now we can move on to the next piece here, which is securing another antennae on the left-hand side here. There's that. Now I need one more antennae here. Now for our last little antenna here. Okay, there we go. All of our paint there looks pretty good. And now we need to add on a little bit more detail, and this detail is kind of small. So I'm going to use some more pointed ones here, my pointed tweezers. We're going to grab this guy right here. Awesome. Now this right here is part 22. And I'm just going to follow the whole pattern here just by folding each one of these little pieces of metal. I'm going to bring us right up. Folding each one of these little bits of metal here. There is the focus. Down. And again, we're just going to match the seams. Ta-da! All done. Yay! That is part 22, all nice and formed. let's put it on the back here. I think, too, this is the last bit of detail that we need to add on to the back of D-0's head. Oh, we got her in. Wow. Woo! That was challenging. But we managed to get her in. We're good. We're good now. Let's just secure this in with a twist. Boom. And we're going to do the opposite way with this one here, just so we can try to keep that straight. And wow, that was difficult. Now let's bend this guy back here, being careful not to break it off. Whew. That was challenging. All right, we did the back, and I think that's now all the detail, and we can move on to, of course, forming D-0's head. Now, before we do that, this is part 23 here, we need to actually form the neck, which is part 24. Here we go. And if you look on the back of this piece, well, you'll notice, okay, there we go. Those lines there are actually where we need to grab the metal and bend it. So it's very important we get as close to those lines as possible with our tweezers. Now I'm going to do that here. Going to bend it. There we go. Same thing again. Going right there. Excellent. Looking good. And then we're going to secure it right into here. There's our funky little shape that we wanted to get. All pretty. Now we want to make sure that the non-engraved side, that's the side here, is up. Cool, cool. Now we're going to bend these dies down, just like that. Boom. And boom. Great. There's our part all nice and formed. I get a really nice kind of round shape here, and then I'm going to use more of my more intense cones, and I should be able to get a good shape. Okay, now that we got to like this shape here, we can work with this a little bit more, and I can get where I want it to be. So now let's put this back into place and continue on with the build. As we gotta bend these up, unfortunately, because we can't hide these tabs. Okay, so now we have our tabs where we want them to be. We need to put the back end that we worked so hard on inside. This can be a little bit tricky, especially because of how much I've already closed this. You might want to do this before you get to the stage that I am already at, just to make it a little bit easier on yourself. I'm going to start just by kind of starting with the top, but it might be better for me to start by the side. Let me see here. I'm going to use my tweezers here to hold on to that little centerpiece here. This actually might be a little bit more trickier than I was expecting because of all of that detail. How am I going to lock this back piece in if I can't get it into the hole? That's going to be... Huh. I'm going to have to open this up like this. Yeah. And then slide it back. That's the only way. Interesting. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do this. Maybe we'll start with the back one because it seems to be the place to start. There's that. Now the paint is actually on this side, so we're gonna push it over. That's not the greatest securing way of doing this, but it's the only way to hide those tabs. So I'm gonna try to go down here first before pushing it over completely, but I might have to push it over first. Close this little nose. Boom! And there we go. D-0's head. Looking good. I like it. I like it a lot. Alright, let's get more parts. And there we have it. All of our parts needed to build D-0. Now let's grab part 26 here, which is the rim of Dio's head, and place it on the back. Let's do that real quickly here. Oop, I have a little spur on the end I want to take care of. There we go, or spur, burr, all the same. They look bad, we don't like them, so we take them off. And one down here too. Okay, there we go. Now I put this on the back. Now I'm just going to secure this over and press her down. Press her over and down. Look at that. That looks so cool. All that detail really does come through, doesn't it? Okay, let's continue on here by adding on part 27. This is the engraved side here, and again, we're just going to match all the sides with the pieces that we're bending down here. Again, if you see any kind of seam, you just gotta bend the piece a little bit more in that area. Okay, now let's get our little guy here all placed in. There we go. Awesome. Awesome, 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 awesome. All right, let's get to part 28 here. Down here. Just like that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add that little bit of an antenna. That's part 29 here. And we're going to put that on. But first thing we have to do is bend these tabs. And now we insert it into that little side here. Excellent. Just a little push, 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 push. That needs to be more flush than that. Come on now. Oh, there we go. Got her in. There we go. Excellent. Just a little bit of a force, and I got her in there. That is surprisingly a hard tab to bend. Okay. Looking nice, looking nice. Now we add our head on top here. Like a glove. Okay, now with that all secured up, we can bend it all over. Excelente. And oh, so close. I love it when they go right in. That's always a nice thing. Let's see if I can get bring that down a little bit. Come on now. Now with this little piece here, the best thing to do is really bend this first piece part right here. Really bend it, because if you bend it right, you can actually pretty much just get that last piece, and you close it really well. Let me show you. See how that formed? Really nice. Same with that side. It's just about getting that really nice bend to start it, and then all you gotta do is just push it in, and it really does look nice. It comes together well. All right. Looking good, Dio. Looking good. Looking good, buddy. Now let's build this base here. Our base, just like we did before, we could go all the way around, slowly bending the way. But I'm going to go ahead and do it this way here. I like it this way. It seems to work well, I think. Ooh, I'm leaving marks in my desk. That's no good. I'm gonna take these tabs here and bend them in. Just like that. Okay, now that we got this all working out, we can just bend these up. insert part 31 here. And now this is the part we're going to make sure we're on the opposite ends. We don't want to have anyone seeing the seam in our back here. So I'm going to try my best to avoid that. Okay, now that's all in. We can start securing these tabs in too. Of course, I'm bending them flat where the green side is. We're going to try to blend them in the best we possibly can. Now for the moment of truth. Putting this down, we can grab our body that we made earlier and attach D-0 to it. Here we go. Do-do-do-do-do-do. I can't help but feel a little bit nervous doing this every single time. This is the major step of the build. It's so much chaos. Oh, come on now. All right. Okay. Let's go for the build here. We're going to put it right here. There we go. And... yeah, we got her in. Okay. Whew. Now, these tabs are tricky because of where they are. So, take your time securing them. I am going to bend them with the white side as best I possibly can. Yeah, I got you anyway. Cool, there we go. Neat, 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 neat. Now, we get to do some wire work, which is different than the average droid unit that we typically have to work with. Let's see here. Bring her around here. Okay. Let's see if I can use my other tweezers here. This might be better for this part. We need something with a little bit more authority. It grabs here. And then I want you to come back here. Like that. Now, with you two almost in a holy embrace, I'm going to squish you together. Like that. Aw, aren't you cute? You're so cute and looking like wires together. Alright, now this is the harder part. Okay, now I'm just going to pre-bend these wires here again. Just getting ready for that next little move. Woo, not too much there, soldier. This is the kind of the hard part. It's kind of like doing the wire work is always, as long as you have the black stuff hanging up side front, it pretty much looks really good anyway. But with this here, you really want to have the single piece first come in, like that, and this attaches here, like that. Okay, there we go. That is all attached and looking pretty. Now we can go ahead and place this right here on to its base. Now let's see here. Awesome. Look at that. Now we can secure these guys here. And there we go. We have D-0.